morning, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining us today for the inauguration of Debra Bowen, who was reelected to serve as the California's 30th Secretary of State. If you would all please rise for the presentation of the colors by the California Conservation Corps, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to introduce Chris Mayo, the Chief of the Information Technology Division, and Dora Mejia, the Chief of the Management Service Division.
Thank you to the California Conservation Corps, the oldest and largest state conservation corps program in the nation. The young people of the Corps work amazingly hard all year long to protect and restore California's environment and respond to disasters, and they become stronger citizens through their service.
Now please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guards, post colors. Color guard, salute. 2. Color guard, about face.
Good morning. My name is Chris Reynolds, and I'm the Acting Chief of the Political Reform Division. The Secretary of State is, among other duties, California's Chief Election Officer. And the privilege falls to me today to say a few words about the Secretary and her work. And I've been advised more than once to say just a few words. So in the interest of brevity, I'd like to acknowledge just a few of the virtues she's brought with her and demonstrated in her first term. A keen analytical mind, a passion for excellence, and a commitment to public service. There is one public honor bestowed on Secretary Bowen that perhaps sums it up best, the Profiles in Courage Award. It's an award she won for her groundbreaking work to safeguard the public trust by ensuring our electoral system is as transparent as possible. Oddly enough, it was a Soviet dictator, Joseph Stalin, who said, "It's not the people who vote that counts, it's the people who count the votes." In this case, though, it's more appropriate to say it's not the way that people vote that counts, it's the way the votes get counted. Because as the nonpartisan arbiter of democracy, the Secretary of State is focused on one thing, the integrity of the process we use to conduct elections in this state. And a new generation of voting equipment with a virtually secret tally system cloaked by intellectual property rights was the way democracy was headed. But in a democracy, the only secret thing should be the secret ballot. And as the Secretary once said, every democracy can be judged by how much faith you have in the results from the ballot box. That legacy, standing up and asking the hard question, what's the right thing to do, is a much-deserved legacy, one earned through hard work and determined commitment to the public trust. I know. I was there. I saw it for myself. But why are we here today? What is an inaugural? Some might suppose it's a victory lap for a politician. But here at the Secretary of State's office, especially, it's much more than that. It's a celebration of democracy. When this country was still in its infancy, historians note it may have been the first time in the history of the world that there was a peaceful transition of power. National leaders stepped aside and others took their place, simply based on ballots cast by voters, as imperfectly as voters were defined at that time. A nation staking its legitimacy on the consent of the governed. Something unheard of, something remarkable. Democracy isn't easy, far from it. Democracy can be messy, and the politics of democracy can be muddy and mind-numbing and even mindless. As the Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw suggested, democracy is a device that ensures we shall be governed no better than we deserve. But as the American patriot Thomas Paine said, those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must undergo the fatigues of supporting it. Yes, democracy is the hardest form of government. In fact, democracy is the worst form of government until you consider all the alternatives. So in the spirit of leadership provided by Debra Bowen, leadership that leads to hard work, I just want to remind everyone what democracy really means and why democracy needs you. An election is like nothing else that government does. On a single day, a volunteer army of more than 100,000 poll workers and elections officials, most of them trained in a matter of hours about election procedures that number more than 500 pages of law, staff more than 20,000 polling places to serve millions of voters. Then, in a matter of months, they do it all again, unless there's a special election, or 2, or 3, or 5. In fact, it's only fitting that there's a special election today. To put it in perspective, to pull off an election, it would take more than half the United States Marine Corps, or half the entire state workforce, or about 30 dedicated employees in the Secretary of State's Election Division, with a lot of help and support from other dedicated Secretary of State employees. Democracy is a remarkable thing, but it is a more remarkable thing to make it work. And so I would just like to remind everyone, to inspire everyone, to remember that whatever you do here at the Secretary of State's office, you are making this democracy work. You are sustaining an ideal. You are the guardians of democracy. You give it life. So be faithful to its cause, and above all, be courageous. Thank you, Secretary Bowen. And on behalf of the Secretary, thanks to all of you. For today, let's celebrate democracy.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Lanoyle, Chief of the Archives and Museum Division and State Archivist. Almost 100 years ago, on October 10th, 1911, Californians went to the polls and changed the state forever. No, I'm not referring to establishing the initiative, referendum, and recall processes. The voters of 1911, all men, approved Proposition 4, giving women the right to vote in California. We are here today, almost 100 years after women were given the ability to vote for the first time, to see only the 7th woman in California history to be elected to a statewide constitutional office, swear in the 6th woman in California history to hold that distinction. As the first woman to be state archivist, I take particular pleasure in sharing with you a few reasons why Proposition 4 was adopted. The qualities that described women 100 years ago describe Debra Bowen today. The text is taken directly from the 1911 ballot pamphlet, Argument in Favor of Women's Suffrage, by Charles W. Bell, who represented the 36th State Senate District. And I quote, "Women have the intelligence, the perseverance, and the honesty of purpose to assist in uplifting the state. They have a strength which should not be cast aside in the struggle for better things. Women are conscientious, and it would create a large reserve vote for civic righteousness. She is directly interested in good government, bad laws, and the non-enforcement of good laws directly affect her in all of her relations. The world needs women's influence in public affairs, and women need the influence of a larger world, a larger responsibility than they have been allowed to feel. Only with men and women developing and progressing side by side can we expect an approximation of that splendid destiny which awaits the arousing of all citizens to exercise of the privilege and responsibility of cooperation in a government for all the people, by all of the people.
Good morning. I'm Betsy Bogart. I'm the chief of the Business Programs Division. The Business Programs Division serves over 1 million businesses every year. Under the guidance of Secretary of State Debra Bowen, we have accomplished a good deal in the past 4 years, despite budget cuts. This is due to the continued dedication and leadership of Secretary Bowen and to all of your hard work. In the Business Programs Division, we have become more efficient in certifying documents, producing records, imaging all business entity documents, and we now have access to more than 2 million business filing images, which is fantastic. We have implemented Secretary Bowen's Business Information Modernization Proposal and have reduced processing times significantly. We are excited that Secretary Bowen has been reelected so that we can do even more. With Secretary Bowen's leadership, we look forward to bringing further improvements in technology and streamlining this office to further assist businesses in California. It is now my privilege to introduce the first woman Attorney General of California, and as Nancy said, the 7th woman in California to be elected to a statewide constitutional office. Today we are honored to have her here to administer the oath of office to our Secretary of State, Debra Bowen. Please join me in welcoming California's new Attorney General, the Honorable Kamala Harris.
Thank you. And welcome to all of you on this extraordinary occasion to honor and to recognize the incredible success and achievements of one of our state's leaders in an office that often does not receive the attention it deserves only if there's something that goes wrong. And so Debra, I think, sometimes does not receive the attention she deserves because everything goes so well. But I want to say that I'm very honored to have been asked to do the oath today and recognize that only 4 years ago, Debra Bowen was sworn in as the Secretary of State and just the 6th woman to hold a statewide office in this great state of California. And since that time, she has proven that she is a strong leader, that she is committed, and that she is dedicated in terms of doing the incredible work that is a tremendous challenge, which is the work of being Secretary of State. Throughout her first term, Debra has demonstrated time and again her commitment to defend and to expand democracy. And I think we heard wonderful words about the importance of that. And so it's an honor to be here today, and I'm going to ask the Secretary of State, Debra Bowen, will you please come up and let's administer this office oath. Family bodies and music. Okay, raise your right hand. Put your left hand on the Bible. Okay, I'm going to say I, and then please say your name, and then repeat after me.
I, Debra Bowen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
morning. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. It is such a privilege to have you here. I also want to thank everyone who's watching the webcast, because I know that there are many people who don't always get to come to Sacramento. And one of the things that we can do now that we wouldn't have been able to do 100 years ago or even 10 years ago is include people from all around the state, even when they can't make the journey to Sacramento. I want to thank Attorney General Harris. I do think it is the only time in California history that two women have served in statewide constitutional office at the same time. But we have to verify that. And a special thank you to the California Conservation Corps. This is a program that has been near and dear to my heart since I first learned about it in my first year in the State Assembly in 1993. It's a program that teaches citizenship by doing, and it gives so many young people a path to a successful future and an engaged future that they would not otherwise have. I've had the privilege of going into the backcountry with the California Conservation Corps in a program that a small number of young people do every year. They go for 2 months and do fire lines and path maintenance, and it is life-changing for many of the young people who do it. This is a program that is always in danger of budget cuts, and that is probably maybe the single most cost-effective thing we do in state government. So I will be enlisting all of you again, if I need to make sure that we continue to have a strong California Conservation Corps. So let's give a hand to the young people who are here today. And of course, I want to thank my family, my husband, Mark Neckedham. You could tell my Bible holder wasn't any mere Bible holder. He's put up with the trials of being a political spouse for a long time now, and it's not an easy task. And then I'm really glad to have with me my dad, Bob Bowen, who's sitting down in the front. He's been through plenty of challenges in the last year, and I'm so grateful that he is here and in good health today. And sitting next to him is my stepsister, Susan Skillman, who's also an essential part of my family. So thanks for coming, Susan. Also, a shout-out to the other elected officials who are here today. I see John Chung here, another fabulous elected office holder. And elected to another 4-year term, according to the wisdom of the voters. And that is how we do things. We rely on the voters in their infinite wisdom to make decisions about who will lead the state. Chris, you did such a fabulous job in talking about democracy. I'm going to start sending you out to give speeches instead of going myself. It is an amazing thing that we do with this process that we have of transferring power in an orderly way, where people actually, they pack up and they leave voluntarily, and new people come in. It's really amazing in the history of human beings. But it's something that most of us just take absolutely for granted. We don't give any thought to it at all. And one of the things that I do as I go around the state is try to help people think just for a couple minutes about what an extraordinary thing it is that we have, our self-rule. I'm really pleased to have my 6 division chiefs who are actually the ones who make things run in this office here doing this today. They're people who are behind the scenes. You very rarely see them, but if you want to know why it is that filings work online, it's because Chris Mayo directs an enterprise in collaboration with Betsy Bogart that works, and they make it happen. So I wanted to share this with my co-workers at the Secretary of State's office, because everything that happens here is because somebody who is employed in the Secretary of State's office actually does the work. And they have done an incredible job in the last 4 years, even in a time of budget cuts and things like office supply days, where we all go through our drawers and put any extra stickies out on the table so that we can delay ordering stickies for maybe an extra month. But we have a lot more to accomplish by the end of 2014. There is no question that I would not be here without the extraordinary work of all the people who are employed in the Secretary of State's office, because if they didn't do extraordinary work, the people of California would decide to have somebody else leading the effort. So thank you to all of you. And I want to ask those of you who are in the audience now to stand up if you have had anything to do with any of the following. First, if you've been part of the Business Improvement Modernization Project, which is intended to reduce the number of paper filings we do, put more documents online, and reduce the time it takes to fulfill public records requests. If you've had anything to do with the Business Modernization Project, stand up. And you're going to stay standing. If you've been part of providing your expert legal analysis, or you've served as an investigator in any of, whether it's voting, notary, or anything else, please stand. If you have carried out any management service duties, human resources, mail, reproduction, contracting, budgets, office supplies, sticky drives, time for you to stand. If you help make our computers, phones, or website work, please stand up. If you have processed any of the thousands of lobbyist and campaign disclosure documents, or made filings more readily accessible to the public on the CalAccess website or on paper, please stand. If you've been involved in accessioning a new archives collection, safeguarding the records that we have on hand, or assisting anyone in research at the state archives, please stand. Anybody who's helped register a California voter or performed any of the duties that are involved in this extraordinary thing we call an election, state or federal, please stand. Anybody who has registered a domestic partnership or a safe-at-home participant, please stand. If you have made the building work with security, electricity, plumbing, cleaning, heating, air conditioners, even elevators, and we do have on one elevator half floors. It goes from 2 to 11 and a half and 3 to 12 and a half. If you have ever helped a member of the public on the phone, by mail, or in person, and as part of your task, all right, that is where it is at. Thank you. A big round of applause to everyone who is standing. All of the people who just stood up are part of why this enterprise is successful. And I hear every week a story from some Californian about receiving excellent public service from this office. We actually have had people who've come to the 6th floor to demand to see me, only to say thank you, which is certainly not what the people on the receiving end of that were expecting to hear. So I'm grateful to all of you, all the people on this team who go above and beyond the call of duty on a daily basis to carry out the responsibilities of this office, responsibilities that are just often so invisible, but that are so critical to the functioning of democracy and to making commerce work in the state of California, protecting people who are in the Safe at Home program, getting a notarization for some important document. So many things that we do. Thank you. We're on to another 4 years, and we are doing it with a strategic plan. And our vision statement is simple, and it is this. The vision of the California Secretary of State's office is to be a recognized leader in ensuring fair and secure elections, making it easier to do business in California, and protecting individual rights and state treasures. It sounds straightforward, but it is not a goal that we will reach if we're asleep at the wheel. But then nobody who's in the audience today who just stood up is the type to put things on cruise control. There are a lot of people, and especially those who are the division chiefs who are sitting here, who are the kind of people who see what could be done better and set about making it happen. It's great that we've agreed on the values that we find important in our work together. We've identified 6 values that I want to share with all of you that guide our work in the Secretary of State's office. First, service, which is why we're all here. Service that is respectful and reliable. Second, ethics, integrity and honesty that shows in our professional demeanor. No one has to worry about whether any action that's taken in this office is taken for any reason other than that it is in compliance with the law and it is what needs to be done. A third is teamwork, a collaborative manner with courtesy and mutual respect. That's important in any workplace. Fourth, very important, openness in our actions and decisions whenever possible. And it's interesting, having come from the legislature where there are lots of public records and hearing requirements, there basically are no requirements in the state law for how the Secretary of State's office is to conduct business. The few exceptions, there's no requirement that there ever be a public hearing, public notice, public comment. So every time we do something like that, for the most part, we're making up a process that creates public input and openness because there isn't one that's mandated. The fifth is innovation, and that means pursuing more efficient ways of doing business and creatively approaching challenges and opportunities. This one's been really easy to get to at a time when we have 25% fewer funds to spend doing our work than we had when I was sworn in 4 years ago. You have to be innovative. You cannot do a new voter outreach program in anything other than an innovative way if you don't have any money to spend doing it. You have to find a way to create partnerships and to do things that leverage things that other people are doing. And finally, consistency. Consistency in the information and the services that we deliver so that no matter who walks in the door, whose email it is, or who calls on the phone that day, the service that they get is exactly the same and is the same level of courtesy and professionalism are extended to all. Every person in every division has responsibility for living these values at this office, and every one of us has a role to play in carrying out our strategic plan. And for the next 4 years, we will continue to do well what we have been doing well and then find ways to do it better. We will also continue to find creative ways to improve our processes with the small budget and limited resources that we have. And there is, without a doubt, no shortage of challenges ahead of us. But I am really proud of the challenges that we have blazed in the last 4 years and the roadmap that we have for what is next. And I thank all of you whose paychecks come from the Secretary of State's office for your commitment to public service. And I pledge to do as I have for the last 4 years, which is to always keep in mind, especially when dealing with the budget forces, that is the people who work here that make this office work, and that standing up for you and defending your right to earn a decent living and to have good working conditions is the most important thing that I can do to ensure that you can deliver excellent public service. So thank you again to all of you who joined me in person and on the internet today. To the Secretary of State's office staff, I look forward to stopping by the divisions later today. I remember the first time I did that 4 years ago. I think I almost had heart failure when I saw how much paper processing was done in the business divisions. When I saw that public records meant 7 microfilm readers. But even with very limited funds, I think we've made a big progress on that, and it's just such an essential part of serving the public well to use the technology that we have available to us. And it will save the state a great deal of money, and it will allow us to use the people we have to do those things that only human beings can do. no question that lots of things can be done with somebody filing a form online, but anything that's complicated, anything that's out of the ordinary, or any person who's doing something for the first time, filing a declaration of limited partnership, should be able to reach out to us to get help in how it is that you do that. And we can do that in this office if I don't have a lot of people who have to type in the information that they got on a paper form into a computer, which is a job that I hope that we all transition to things that are more fun and more challenging and more rewarding for those who do them. So thank you again, and to my family, again, thank you so much for supporting me, and to Attorney General Harris, I greatly look forward to working with you in the next 4 years. Make no mistake, the Office of the Attorney General is really critical to the functioning of the Office of the Secretary of State because we have no law enforcement ability of our own. I have to rely on the Office of the Attorney General and the district attorneys around the state to take enforcement action in any situation. So I'm grateful to have you here. It's so wonderful to have two-sevenths of the women ever elected to statewide office here at the same time. So let's go back to work.